Hi and welcome back to Classic MGB. Now, to many, Romeo is half of that Shakespearean couple, or even half of a famous Italian car manufacturer. Incidentally, I had one of those a while ago. It was a real collector's car. You collected the bits that fell off. But I digress. To most MG enthusiasts, Romeo, together with its stablemate Mabel, were the last and possibly the best competition MGs to come out of the BMC competitions department in Abingdon. These cars have inspired a whole range of replicas, but we found one of only 2 original cars ever built. Before we take a closer look at Romeo specifically, it's worth outlining how the car came about. Although as the Classic MGB channel, we're using a little poetic license, as Romeo isn't actually an MGB at all. It's actually based on an MGC. And as they were based on the GT body shell, both Romeo and Mabel were officially named MGC GTS. The S standing for Sebring, the famous American motor racing circuit. The works MGC story actually began in 1966 and followed a period of some success racing and rallying MGBs since 1963. Although the weight of the car, combined with the fairly old and run-of-the-mill B-Series engine, did make it fairly uncompetitive against quicker opposition. The MGC was already on the drawing board, but BMC being BMC had opposition in the form of its stablemate, the Austin Healey 3000. It was thought that the MGC, even if fully tuned, would only be on a par with the Healey, so an alternative plan was hatched. It was decided that rather than attempt to take part in the ultra-competitive homologated GT class, the prototype class would offer more opportunity for success. Whilst the car would look like an MGC, the regulations allowed substantial lightening and the inclusion of many non-standard parts. This required fairly significant design work, so the project was given the codename EX241 at Abingdon. This design work centred around replacing steel panels with lightweight aluminium for the skin, retaining steel for the floor pan and stress-carrying members. This, together with the 200-odd brake horsepower and the increased torque that the race-tuned 3-litre engine could produce, meant that the car needed to be based on the more rigid, recently launched GT body shell rather than a roadster. A completely new body design was rejected, as that would limit publicity value. One of the big design challenges was to incorporate larger wheels and tyres required for competition, and this gave rise to the iconic flared arches that make the Sebring models so distinctive. Another important difference was that the GTS cars ran without bumpers. The suspension was based around the standard MGC torsion bars at the front and half-elliptical leaf springs at the rear, although there were many detailed differences including revised spring rates, fully adjustable dampers and a rear anti-roll bar. All-round disc brakes replaced the disc drum setup of the standard car, while centre-lock mini-light wheels were also fitted. Both cars took part in the 1968 Marathon de la Route that was won by an MGB in 1966, so it was hoped that the result would be repeated with the MGCs. The event was a challenging 84-hour race held at the notorious Nürburgring circuit in Germany. Whilst Mabel with its conventional iron engine block finished the 6,000 racing miles, overcoming some serious issues, Romeo retired due to its experimental all-alloy engine overheating. Needless to say, the block was replaced with a more conventional iron block afterwards. Sadly, by 1969, BMC, that had then been taken over by Leyland, had cancelled the competitions programme. But despite this, at the Sebring 12-hour race, Romeo, driven by Paddy Hopkirk and Andrew Hedges, went on to finish 6th in class, and followed home by Mabel, 7th in class, driven by Craig Hill and Bill Bragg. Cars currently owned by Paul Mount, and we caught up with him at a recent MGs on Track Day at Castle Combe Circuit in Wiltshire. Paul, what a fantastic car to have. Tell me, how did you get it?
It became available when Dave Saunders sadly died, and it was put up for sale at the Classic Motor Hub, and we went along and had a look at it, and that's the start and end of the story, really.
So, I have to say, it's a fantastic car, and I shouldn't really ask this, but why did you want this particular car?
Well, I've got a couple of other cars, which are obviously historic cars, but this is truly historic because it carries so much history with it. And I just thought it'd be nice to own something that carried real history, especially from the MG Club. The British Motor Corporation was wrapping up, and they were told to sell the car and leave it in the States. And it got purchased by a young man who was an artist, and he was using it to go back and forth to work until the brakes failed. He couldn't repair the brakes, so it went in his garage for 20 years, and then it was brought back into this country about 1986. And it's been owned by 2 other people since then, and now I'm fortunate to own it. I'm the current custodian.
So dare I ask how much you paid for it?
I'll take the 5th on that.
Probably worth every penny, though.
It is to me, and eventually somebody else will come to own this piece of history, and I'm sure they'll feel the same.
So tell me, what are you using it for? You're here at Castle Combe today, so blasting around the track, which is fantastic.
It's my first time I've taken it on the track. I take it out, drive it locally, and take it to a couple of charity shows. But obviously driving it around the roads, it does turn a lot of heads because of the noise it makes. But it's much nicer to make the noise here and nobody tell you off.
It's great to see a car that's that iconic to be actually driven. You know, a lot of people put it in storage or so nobody can see it, or in a museum. But you're actually driving it. I think that's great.
Thanks very much. I'm obviously taking it fairly steady. The first lap obviously was just the pace car lap, and that sort of was very, very slow. And then we went out for our first 15-minute session. That was great fun. Get the noises, get the braking, get the acceleration. And I stayed right at the back, so I didn't get in anybody's way, and really enjoyed it.
Excellent. So what's it like to drive on the circuit?
Fantastic. Yeah, it just grips the road so well, accelerates well, brakes well. I can't fault it. I mean, obviously, I'm not doing racing speeds like some of the guys here are doing, but she's an old girl and I'm an old man, so we're just going to be going a little bit slower than everybody else.
Absolutely. And what are the plans for the car in the future? What are you doing anything with it in the future?
Well, the first person I've told actually, but it's going over to Sebring next March to participate in the Sebring event and to enter the Hall of Fame, which I'm really looking forward to. We're going to spend 2 weeks in Sebring and show it off a bit there. And a lot of the Americans are quite keen to see it.
So last question, I suppose. Would you sell it?
No.
Paul, thank you very much for your time. Appreciated.
Cheers.
Finally, let's join Paul and his friend Simon in Romeo on a lap of the famous Castle Combe circuit. So there you go, one of the most famous MGCs and one of only 2 ever produced. If this video's whetted your appetite, then you might be interested in an offer on the Classic Vehicle Prints website. High quality profile prints of both Romeo and Mabel are available separately, and there's also a special offer if you'd like the pair. All orders are sent out in a sturdy postage tube ready to be mounted in a frame of your choice. Head over to classicvehicleprints.com to take a closer look. Oh, and in case you're wondering how Romeo got to Castle Combe, although it's road legal, Paul and Simon have a classic car storage and transport business called Class. So if you need to store or transport a car, the link is in the description. Finally, let us know what you think in the comments, and if you've enjoyed this video, it would be great if you give it a like, share it with anyone that could be interested, and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you click on the bell, you'll be notified whenever we upload a new video. As always, thanks for watching and take care.